It is well established that climate change is a human rights issue. The world as we know it is warming. Concerned environmentalists as well as international bodies are calling out to set a limit of global warming at a 1.5 degrees Celsius rather than a 2 degrees Celsius. But what does climate change have to do with human rights? Human rights simply exist because we are all humans born free and equal and are inherited to those rights. They are not given to us by the state. Regardless of sexual identity, race, gender, age, and other statuses, we deserve to be recognized under the purview of local and international human rights laws and standards. Human rights can be as simple as the right to food, life, water and sanitation, health and education. But right now, those human rights are being threatened by climate change. For example, is the right to food. Because of climate change, access to food security is affected. In Malaysia, if global temperatures rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius, our rice production would fall by 30%. This not only affects our access to our staple food, but also the income and livelihoods of rice farmers as they battle extreme droughts that are caused by climate change. It is projected that more cases of child malnutrition and world hunger will increase if we do not stop climate change. Another concern is our right to water and sanitation. A recent United Nations data shows that 3 billion people are struggling with their access to water. Water is a human right, and prolonged droughts caused by a warmer world only affects our access to sanitation. Health problems will also increase because of climate change. From floods, there will be more cases of waterborne diseases. Rise in global temperatures also lead to heat waves, as well as dengue and malaria when there is more heat and humidity. There was a study based on the victims in the flood of Kelantan where they were struggling with mental health problems due to losing their home. Mental health is also an issue when it comes to climate change, as young people and indigenous groups are more exposed to eco-anxiety. It is also known that climate change has disproportionate effects. Everyone is affected, but marginalized and financially disadvantaged communities will face the full brunt of climate change, even worse. This group includes poor people, persons with disabilities, women, indigenous groups, migrants, and many more. Small developing nations like Kiribati are already suffering from rising sea levels, unsafe drinking water, and extreme weather patterns caused by climate change, yet they contribute very little emissions. 71% of global industrial greenhouse gas emissions are caused by only 100 companies, yet poor people and other marginalized groups are facing more challenges when it comes to climate change. The right to adequate housing is affected too. Since 2008, an average of 24 million people have been displaced by climate change-related disasters. It is projected by 2050, as much as 143 more million people will be displaced from climate change. In Malaysia, we are already seeing cases of extreme floods ruining the homes of people in Kelantan and Penang. Climate change also enforces migration, where people have to leave their homes because they are no longer habitable. Climate change also impacts the lives of women. In some countries, women have to walk longer distances to get water because of prolonged droughts. In a study conducted in 2 rural wetland communities in Uganda, women are facing gender-based violence caused by climate change. The scenarios were such as families that were not coping well with food scarcity, and they were struggling to have financial stability. They would have to sell off their daughters into marriages, even if their daughters wanted to say no to it. That means it's affecting a woman's decisions to say yes or no to things. Another example would be women trading sex with shopkeepers and landowners to pay rent or to pay for food. We are seeing these kind of disproportionate effects affecting women. Another effect is that 80% of those displaced by the climate crisis happen to be women. A recent report by WEF Global Gender Gap Report says that only 21% of women are holding minister roles. We know that women are powerful agents of change and that they deserve to be where decision making is at. So what are the solutions? Malaysia needs to declare a climate emergency, a recent symbolic move that have been done by countries like New Zealand and even developing countries like Bangladesh. We need to see climate change as the crisis it already is. We must create inclusive platforms where decision and policy making, where everyone is involved. A gender-responsive solution must take its place where women must be given fair resources and opportunities to combat climate change. The government must also allow participation and leadership from indigenous communities in conservation. The total of indigenous communities from all around the world represent only 6%, but 80% of global biodiversity thrives in sacred indigenous lands. Malaysia must focus on decarbonizing industries while addressing economic inequality and social justice.